Sometimes, there's a silence you can't explain. No footsteps, no breath, and yet, you know something is there. That unfamiliar thought, hiding in the back of your mind, the presence you feel every night, though you don't remember inviting it. Real fear doesn't live in the dark. It lives in that echo within you, the one without a name. These stories aren't from the outside world. They come from inside you. And now, they want out. If you're ready, welcome to the true darkness. As I climbed the worn-out stairs of that old, crumbling apartment building, carrying boxes in my arms, I felt a strange chill mixed with the excitement of a fresh start. When I opened the door to my new place, a cold, empty room greeted me. I threw open the windows, and although the stale, heavy air stung my lungs, knowing this was going to be my home brought a weird sense of comfort. I set the box down and looked around. The damp stains on the walls, cobwebs hanging from the ceiling, and the creaking wooden floorboards beneath my feet sounded like whispers rising from the earth beneath the building. This place reeked of history, but not the kind tied to fond memories. The first few days were spent adjusting to the slow, quiet rhythm of this old building. I gradually settled into my apartment-hung paintings to add some color to the walls, lined my books up neatly on the shelves, and tried to make the room feel warmer, more livable with my personal touches. The apartment building was usually silent, but not in a peaceful way. It felt more like everyone was holding their breath, as if waiting for something. Occasionally, I'd hear slow, rhythmic footsteps from the floor above, or the muffled sound of a television drifting up from below. Beyond that, the building rarely made a sound. I hadn't met any of the neighbors yet, but the few I passed in the hallways offered rushed greetings and avoided eye contact, as if eager to disappear back behind their doors. But by the end of the first week, the oddities began. One evening, as I sat on the couch reading my book under the dim light, I heard a faint noise coming from the wall beside me. It sounded like something being dragged across the floor. I froze, held my breath, and listened. The sound stopped. I shrugged it off and went back to reading, telling myself it was probably just the old pipes or the neighbor rearranging furniture. The next night, the sounds started again, only this time they were more distinct. It was like scratching, but much harder and more deliberate than what any animal could make. It felt like someone was clawing at the wall, either with their nails or with something sharp. I felt uneasy, couldn't focus on my book. I walked up to the wall and listened. The sounds were irregular, arrhythmic, and then suddenly, without warning, they would just stop. And those abrupt silences were even more disturbing than the sounds themselves. It was as if whatever was inside knew I was listening, and chose to go quiet. I hadn't met my next-door neighbor yet. One morning, as I stood by my door, getting ready to leave for work, the door of the apartment next to mine slowly creaked open, and an old man stepped out. This was Mr. Joseph. He wore a stained, threadbare robe, and his hair was messy, like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were vacant, as if from exhaustion or something else, and he deliberately avoided looking at me. His face wore a strange, emotionless expression, like a mask. Smiling, I said, "Hi, I'm your new neighbor, Emily." Mr. Joseph gave a slight nod. His lips moved as if to speak, but all that came out was a low, raspy mumble, incomprehensible and dry, like something scratching at his throat. Then he slowly closed his door behind him and began shuffling down the hallway as if burdened by some unseen weight. I watched him go. There seemed to be an invisible chill that lingered around him, and the air in his wake felt heavier, colder. The sounds continued, and they were getting louder. Along with the scratching and dragging noises, there were now faint, muffled whispers. I couldn't understand them. They sounded like a foreign language I didn't recognize, but their tone was unmistakably unsettling. It felt like people were arguing behind the wall, yet their words dissolved in the air, leaving only a sinister murmur behind. I was having trouble sleeping at night. I'd press a pillow over my ears, but the sounds seemed to bypass everything and go straight into my mind. Sometimes I thought I heard the whispers repeating my name, Emily. Emily, but I told myself it was just fatigue and fear playing tricks on me. Still, each time, it felt more and more real. I asked the building manager about Mr. Joseph. As soon as he heard my question, I noticed a brief flicker of discomfort on his face. Hesitantly, he said, "Mr. Joseph, he doesn't talk to many people. Keeps to himself. Never causes any trouble," but his eyes were lying. He was tense, clearly trying to move on from the subject quickly. When I tried speaking with other neighbors, I got similar, sometimes even more intense reactions. No one wanted to talk about Mr. Joseph. They hinted at strange rumors surrounding him, but avoided giving any details. They used vague phrases like, "Some things happened in the past," whispering as if sharing a secret. This mystery only fueled my growing sense of fear. What was really happening in that apartment next door? Who exactly was Mr. Joseph? My fear had slowly turned into an obsessive curiosity. I began to pay closer attention to the door of the apartment next to mine. It was always firmly shut, not as if it were keeping something out, but as if it were holding something in. The wood was old and worn, but the lock looked new and solid. Sometimes a strange, heavy, metallic odor drifted from beneath the door. It smelled like a mix of rotting meat and rust sickening. The smell always grew stronger whenever the sounds intensified. One night, the noises reached their peak. From apartment 4 came a loud crash, like metal slamming against metal. It sounded as if something massive and heavy had toppled over and shattered. Then came a muffled, inhuman scream full of pain, and after that, a blade-sharp silence. I leapt out of bed, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might break through my chest. Trembling, I moved closer to the wall. The noise had stopped. The building had fallen into a deathly silence, but it wasn't a peaceful one. It was the kind of silence that comes just before a storm. Something deep inside me whispered that this wasn't normal, that the horror inside was merely pausing waiting. Something was wrong in the apartment next door. Deeply wrong. And now it wasn't just the sounds, the smell coming from inside was suffocating. I noticed a faint flickering, yellowish light seeping out from under the door. I crouched down and tried to peek through the keyhole. The view was blurry, dark. The inside looked messy, chaotic. Something on the floor was glinting, metallic, maybe. As I tried to focus more closely, I thought I could make out a large, dark, shapeless mass lying on the ground. It resembled a human body, but it seemed unnaturally twisted. At that very moment, a single eye suddenly appeared from beside the figure on the floor, staring directly through the keyhole at me. It locked onto mine with terrifying precision. Bloodshot with bulging veins, it gleamed with pure, primal madness. The pupil was unnaturally dilated, as if it weren't just seeing me, but peering straight into the deepest, darkest corners of my soul. There was hunger in that eye, rage, and an unfathomable pain. I recoiled in horror, breath caught in my throat. My heart pounded like it was going to burst through my chest. That I was still there, in the keyhole, staring at me. It felt like the door itself was breathing. I ran back to my apartment, slamming the door shut behind me and locking every lock. I pressed my back against it, my whole body shaking. My eyes were wide open, and the image of that horrific eye in the keyhole kept spinning in my mind. The building was silent again, but that silence no longer brought me comfort. It was torture. I looked at the wall separating us. I knew something was there, still there, waiting for me. And I knew. It now knew I existed. A faint, rhythmic scratching sound came from under my door. It was as if something was patiently, slowly clawing its way out. I closed my eyes, but the sound wouldn't stop. It was no longer just coming from the wall, it was echoing inside my own mind. And I knew. The sound wouldn't stop. Ever. Maybe that I hadn't just seen me through the keyhole, maybe it had seen my fear too. And fear was what it fed on. If you liked the video, subscribe, leave a comment. And remember, we'll meet again where the light fades.